Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. I'm Lorcan Doherty and today we're talking about movie director J.A. Bayona. J.A. Juan Antonio, Jota, whatever you want to call him, Bayona is one of the leading lights of Catalan cinema. After cutting his teeth in Catalonia with the horror flick The Orphanage, he's gone on to Hollywood, handpicked by Steven Spielberg to direct Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. And recently, he directed the first 2 episodes of what is said to become the most expensive television series ever made, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. On today's podcast, we're going to hear from the man himself. We caught up with J.A. on the red carpet at the 2023 Gaudí Awards here in Barcelona. And we talked to 2 of his former teachers to find out if he was always destined for success. I'm delighted to be joined today by Gerard Escaich. Hi, Gerard.
Hello, Lorcan.
Gerard, why don't you start by giving us a bit of a brief overview of J.A. Bayona's movies?
Well, I've watched nearly all of them, so I have a clear idea. So he first directed The Orphanage in 2007, then he moved up to a bigger movie, The Impossible, then A Monster Calls, and then we also have Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. So there are different movies, different genres, and all very, very special, I would say.
Tell us a little about The Orphanage then. This is his first movie from back in 2007, as you said. So it's basically a horror film.
Yeah, very scary and mysterious, creepy. There's not a lot of blood and gore. It's more suspense and intrigue. And it's a haunted house film. And because a woman returns to an old orphanage where she was raised and to set up a new orphanage for children with disabilities. But things don't go as planned.
It was a big success critically and as well at the box office. On a budget of only $4 million, it made almost $80 million. We were looking at some of the reviews there. Deeply unnerving, surprisingly poignant, atmospheric, beautifully crafted. So it went down very well. His first movie was in Spanish. Since then, he's moved to English language films. And it's a film that Bayona is clearly very proud of. Filling the Sink caught up with him on the red carpet a couple of weeks ago at the 2023 Gaudí Awards, which is the Catalan equivalent of the Oscars. Here is J.A. Bayona.
Bueno, jo recordo amb molt de carinyo, sobretot, l'estrena de l'Orfanato al Festival de Sitges.
I have very fond memories of the screening of The Orphanage at Sitges Film Festival. It was a very special night because I had grown up going to the festival every year. And to be at Sitges with my movie, it was even more thrilling for me than going to Cannes, the most important festival in the world and where we premiered the movie. I think this is one of my fondest memories from when I started out.
Més carinyo que recordo dels meus inicis.
J.A. Bayona there, talking about the Sitges Film Festival. That's an annual horror and fantasy film festival that takes place every year on the seaside town, just about, half an hour south of us here in Barcelona. Lovely spot if you ever get a chance to go. Gerard, let's take a step back. How did this all begin for J.A.?
Well, back in Barcelona 1975, he was born that year, in La Trinitat, a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. And imagine how proud and how fond he is from being raised there, that his production company is named La Trini.
Just like a nickname for Trinidad.
La Trinidad, yeah.
Okay.
And he currently, and after being in Hollywood and working in blockbusters, he currently lives here in Barcelona and just travels to LA.
He's still a homeboy. And actually, he has a twin, and there's a funny story.
Yeah, well, many funny stories between Carlos, his twin, and Juan Antonio. The first one and the most notorious one was back in 2007 when he was nominated for the Best New Director at the Gaudí Awards, the Spanish Academy Awards. They were so similar. The camera guy that was supposed to point at Juan Antonio ended up pointing at Carlos, and you can see them literally live before the nomination, the winner is announced, saying, "Oh no, it's him."
It's hilarious. It's a brilliant video. It's on YouTube. Carlos is just pointed, no, it's not me. And in the end, they actually swap seats because the camera person is just not for moving.
It's hilarious. It's so funny.
So he grew up in La Trinidad with a twin, and when it came to deciding what he was going to do with his life, he wasn't always set for this career as a movie director.
No, exactly. He wanted to be one of us, a journalist.
He could have been here doing this podcast
and we could have one on a Goya and a Gaudí.
Exactly, yeah. So he did consider becoming a journalist, but he always had a big love of movies too.
Yeah, his father was one of his main eye-openers to the movie industry. And in fact, Mexican director and producer Guillermo del Toro was also part of this success. Juan Antonio Bayona met him, interviewed him when he was doing local radio practices. So, and that was like years before The Orphanage, so imagine.
The Orphanage, which then Guillermo del Toro was a producer on. So, I mean, he's del Toro, the Mexican director. He's done the Hellboy films, Pan's Labyrinth, which is a beautiful film, and recently out on Netflix, his Pinocchio. I think it's called something like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, isn't it?
Yeah, very
Just
funny.
so you don't...
it's not Disney's, it's Guillermo del Toro's.
Exactly, so you don't mix it up. So in the end, he didn't study journalism.
No, because his university entry exams marks were not enough to study journalism, so he ended up working and to earn money, like his father did, painting and decorating, to pay the fees for ESCAC, the Cinema and Audiovisual School of Catalonia.
Well, journalism's loss was certainly Catalan cinema's gain, world cinema's gain. Speaking of ESCAC, this Cinema and Audiovisual School of Catalonia, it seems that young J.A. was a model student there, as Cillian Shields found out, speaking to his former teachers, Jaume Macià Vives and Joan Marimón Padrosa.
It's easy to look at the career of J.A. Bayona through the lens of today and see the enormous success he has already achieved. His feature-length films have already taken in well over €1 billion at the box office, having been seen and enjoyed by countless people all over the world. But that, of course, is only the result of a lifetime of hard work and dedication to his craft. So we wanted to get a better picture of what kind of filmmaker, what kind of worker, and even what kind of person Bayona is. So we went to Terrassa, a city just inland from Barcelona, to visit his old film school, ESCAC.
Vaig fer-li al Bayona una assignatura que es deia dramatúrgia.
There we met up with Jaume Macià, Director of Studies at Catalonia's premier film school, who taught Bayona dramaturgy, stories of universal themes, when the director attended the school during the 1990s.
Era un estudiant molt bo.
Macià says Bayona was an excellent student. He admits that there exists something of a mythology, that it is the bad students who go on to become brilliant artists. But Macià makes it clear that in Bayona's case, as well as being a brilliant artist, he always showed he was a great student, never missing classes and always working hard.
Hi ha un aspecte que és rellevant, que jo recordo ja quan era alumne.
ESCAC isn't exactly the cheapest school to attend, and the now world-famous director didn't come from a particularly wealthy family either, as Macià explains. As such, the professor thinks this is what led to Bayona wanting to make the very best use of his time there. Whenever he saw that time was being wasted, he got angry. One day, Bayona even came to Macià's office to ask for certain changes, to improve ways of working and make the best use of everybody's time.
Quan veia que perdia el temps, s'enfadava.
As well as Macià, we also spoke with Joan Marimón over Zoom, who taught Bayona the theory of editing.
No, it's easy to say he was really good, he was fantastic, but it's true. He was very intelligent, very smart. In the first class, I was talking about the law of 180 degrees, and I commit a mistake. I don't remember which one. And one of the pupils said, Mr. Joan, did you say that? Are you sure that you are telling that seriously? And that was Mr. Bayona. And that was the first class. And I thought, I have to take care with that guy because he's really smart, smarter than me.
Però un tio molt exigent. I suposo que això, aquesta característica...
The Barcelona-born artist always demanded the highest standards from himself and from those around him, and Macià believes that this characteristic has served him very well in the professional world, making Bayona a good leader, capable of getting the very best performances from his team.
He's like like Spanish Steven Spielberg. I mean, he's changing genres from adventures to fantastic to drama, more or less like Steven Spielberg. He's very interested in getting the interest of the audience from the first minute, and he knows how to do it.
I ell pensa en la història que està explicant, crec jo.
Bayona always thinks about the story he's trying to tell, Macià says. He's always got the audience in mind. He's a filmmaker that is not concerned about doing crazy stuff, as Macià terms it, just to show off to the world that he can do it.
I think he's a classic filmmaker. He likes classic structures. There's a classic style, I think it's like an American filmmaker in Spain.
Ell està sempre en aquesta òrbita de cinema per l'espectador.
Bayona has always tried to orientate his works for the audience. Comedy, fantasy, science fiction. He's liked doing that from the very start and he hasn't changed much, the dramaturgy teacher says. But Macià adds that Bayona is a very versatile filmmaker, capable of everything, citing The Impossible as a tremendous work of drama.
Our thanks to ESCAC Director of Studies, Jaume Macià Vives, and Joan Marimón Padrosa, a professor there as well, who both taught the young J.A. Bayona. We talked about his first film, Gerard. He then kind of made a big jump in kind of scale and ambition with his next movie, which was The Impossible in 2012.
Switching from Spanish to English.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. It's because this was a Spanish production, but it was
about a Spanish family?
Because based on a true story, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, there's a family there, they get caught up in that. They're spending the Christmas holidays in Thailand. But yeah, it's on a very big scale, but Gerard, it's not... At the same time, it's not your typical bombastic disaster movie, is it?
Well, yes, in a part, only in the huge wave that hits the swimming pool where the family is like spending their holidays there. Then it becomes a human family. I don't know, like you get goosebumps only just imagining like just the story and the tale of like the kids trying to survive, trying to chase their father and the other brother.
And they're all trying to find each other, and you know they don't know if everyone in the family has made it and things like that. But the scene that you mentioned when the tsunami hits is just absolutely incredible as well. But no, it's not one. I watched it just recently, and it's not one for if you're squeamish. I would say maybe not, because there's lots of like real visceral physical depictions of injuries as well. I was squirming a bit watching it.
Yeah, well, they were like drowning. Some of them, they were drowning just like with all the trees and the cars. And in fact, I got to see that moment of like the wave hitting the swimming pool in Escac. Funny enough.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because I went for a school trip there and they showed us this big mixing desk, enormous, like still haven't seen anything as big as that, in a soundproof room, like with a big screen, and they showed me the various channels of the sound of the audio mix from the movie, specifically from that scene.
Fascinating.
So like the birds tweeting, the wave, everything, like it was all in different various channels of sound.
All the different layers together. That's a really nice experience. That's a good school trip.
I still remember it years after.
And the sound. I mean, we were just looking at all the awards. It actually won awards for the sound as well. Best sound at the Gaudí Awards and the Goyas Awards. I think we've mentioned both award ceremonies, but those are like the Catalan and the Spanish equivalents of the Oscars.
Yeah, and in fact, the movie received a lot of awards back then. 6 Gaudís, including Best Director, nominations for Best Picture at the Goyas, Best Director and Best Editing, who won the award. And also, just funny enough, Naomi Watts, the main actress, was nominated for the Oscars, the Golden Globes, and the Goya. But she didn't win any of them.
But she was brilliant in it. Naomi Watts, Ewan McGregor is in A Place to Follow as well. And a young Tom Holland, who is actually really, really good. He looks about 12 in it. I think he
plays Lucas, a 12-year-old kid, but he's actually 16.
Yeah, I didn't actually realise it was him until the credits came up, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, right.
I know, that guy is famous now.
But I mean, it was a huge success as well at the box office. Almost $200 million it made. And it's such a jump from The Orphanage to that in terms of, I mean, it's a significant jump in box office, but in terms of the budget, he went from a $4 million movie to a $45 million movie. Yeah, so it's, so that's The Impossible. If you want to see it, it's in Spain anyway. It's on Disney Plus and Netflix. After that came A Monster Calls. Let's hear J.A. speak about that.
Això mai ho saps, mai saps de veritat si una pel·lícula funcionarà, no funcionarà. No?
You never really know if a film is going to work or not. A Monster Calls was the most successful film of the year in Spain, but abroad it didn't do well. So the same movie can be a great success or a failure at the box office. I think the only thing you can really control is the quality. Try to do your job as best as possible, and I hope, that this, the work I've done, is what people have seen when I've had offers to work abroad.
La meva feina a l'hora d'oferir-me treballs a fora.
J.A. Bayona talking there about how do you measure success, failure? Because interestingly, this particular film, A Monster Calls, it did make a profit, but I think the budget was 43 million euro. At the box office, it made 47.3 million euro, less than his other works. But as he says, you just concentrate as an artist. You concentrate on the quality. You just do your job and hope that people like it. And moviegoers in Spain liked it, but abroad, especially in the US, it didn't really pick up. So it's a dark fantasy drama, Gerard.
Mm-hmm. Liam Neeson starring beside Sigourney Weaver, Felicity Jones.
Yeah, great cast.
Yeah, great cast. And again, we see the theme of a mother and a child, like we've seen in The Impossible, The Orphanage.
Yeah, so that seems to be a subject that binds those first three films of Bayona's together, because it was the mother and child relationship each time. In this particular one, we've kind of got an angry young boy. His mother is sick. She's dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's undergoing chemo, and Liam Neeson plays the monster of the title, a tree, and it's recorded using motion capture. It's his first experience using motion capture.
Yeah, so he comes to visit this little boy at 7 minutes past midnight and tells him 3 tales, and in return, the boy has to tell him one. It kind of reminded me a bit, we mentioned Del Toro earlier, and it reminded me of Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth a little bit, because this mixing of reality and fantasy, and especially how that happens in the mind of a child, and kind of their way of dealing with outside adult stresses and things,
Yeah, some experts, some movie critics may say that Guillermo del Toro is one of his influences, but also Steven Spielberg. He was an admirer of Spielberg, and in fact, in The Orphanage, one of the reviews I read recently said that he had a lot of influences, especially from E.T.
So Bayona was a fan of Spielberg, but it turns out that Spielberg was also a fan of Bayona.
Yeah, exactly. Spielberg wanted for Bayona to direct the first movie of the 3 new movies from Jurassic World, but because Juan Antonio Bayona was recording A Monster Calls, he said no, because he wanted to focus on that project.
But he did do one eventually?
Yeah, because Spielberg asked him again for the second movie, and Bayona said, well, you cannot say no to Spielberg twice, so...
Okay, well, so this was his kind of first big Hollywood film. So, again, here is J.A. Bayona talking about that.
Bueno, de fet, jo vaig fer el salt als Estats Units molt tard, perquè jo, abans de fer Jurassic World, que va ser la primera pel·lícula americana,
In fact, I made the leap to the US very late, because before doing Jurassic World, which was the first American film I did, in fact the only real American film I've ever made, I did 3 films produced here at home. And I think they prepared me for that massive change, going to make films in Hollywood, which is a world that I didn't know.
J.A. talking about the leap to Hollywood there. I mean, we've been talking a little bit about how his budgets have grown with each film. The difference with this one is just insane, isn't it?
Yeah, I can not even say the number.
$1.3 billion it took at the box office. Like, it's just on a complete other scale. So this is for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which is the middle film in the most recent Jurassic trilogy.
It's the 12th highest grossing film of all time.
I have to say, I haven't seen it. I'm more about the original. I
remember the one from 2015, Jurassic World, the normal one.
I haven't seen any of the new ones.
There are previous ones.
The original Jurassic Park. I remember going to the cinema as a very, very excited young boy. So since then, no, I haven't really watched those recent ones.
No, I didn't watch the first one.
Yeah, you probably weren't even alive, were you?
No, I was not even alive.
You weren't alive. There you go. So
still 3 years to go.
Well, tell us about Fallen Kingdom then.
Well, Bayona Jurassic World recovers one of the actors from the original movies, Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, classic.
Yeah. Well, so he's performing beside Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. And the plot of the movie is that they have to return to the island where Jurassic World started and then it collapsed to save the dinosaurs, because there's an impending volcano eruption. Yeah. And when they arrive there, they can see a group of mercenaries trying to kidnap. We could say kidnap the dinosaurs to bring them to US mainline.
Right, okay. So, just hearing that description of it, I can imagine that Bayona is the perfect man for the job, having seen his other films, because the effects in The Impossible or in A Monster Calls are kind of perfect for that kind of scenario that you've just described, And yeah, as you said, big success at the box office, but he didn't return for the third film.
No, that was done by Colin Trevorrow, the director of the first Jurassic World movie, because Bayona decided to go to New Zealand to record The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which just came up.
Just out last year. Yeah. It's out in Prime Video, and I mean, super big budget production. It could run to 5 series. It's kind of a prequel series to the Lord of the Rings movies, so it's set in an age before that. It's a TV series, but it's cinematic in its scale and its ambition, and obviously we've got the New Zealand mountains and the rest, like providing the backdrop again.
That landscape is natural.
Yeah. And speaking of mountains, actually Bayona's next project takes place in the Andes. Again, based on a true story like The Impossible, based on a disaster. Here he is, again, talking to Filling the Sink about that.
Bueno, ara mateix estic muntant la pel·lícula que vaig rodar l'any passat. Vaig rodar La Sociedad de la Nieve, una pel·lícula que està basada...
Right now, I'm editing the movie that I shot last year, Society of the Snow, a film based on the plane crash that happened in 1972 in the Andes. We spent all last year filming it. We finished shooting just before Christmas, and now we're in the edit, and doing the sound, the special effects, and so on. It's also a really tricky movie technically, but we're very happy with the result.
Tècnicament també, però estem molt contents del resultat.
So that's Society of the Snow, out this year on Netflix. Yeah, actually, I'm really looking forward to that because it's a fascinating story, that plane crash, 1972 in the Andes. It was a rugby team that crashed, and it's pretty horrific stuff, not least because in order to survive, they had to resort to cannibalism and actually consuming the dead bodies of the other passengers, most of them who they knew. So absolutely horrific story, but also, a survival film as well. That's coming out this year. And beyond that, well, we'll have to keep an eye out for what J.A. Bayona does. I mean, that journey that we've seen him go on from, Escac to Hollywood and making these big productions, not too many Catalans have made that leap.
No, exactly. There are other directors, just as Jaume Serra, who is the director of Black Adam, starring Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock, who was also starring another movie by Jaume Serra, Jungle Cruise, came out in 2021. Right. And in fact, Serra is very well known for working with Liam Neeson on The Commuter, Run All Night, Non-Stop, and Unknown, so many movies.
Right, 4 films with Liam Neeson, there you go. And we've also got Daniel Brühl, who, German surname, but Catalan connection.
Yeah, his mother is Catalan, his father German, and he's very well known for playing the bad guys in movies. Captain America Civil War, Marvel, Inglourious Bastards by Quentin Tarantino.
For Catalans of an older generation, Gerard, the name Xavier Cugat brings up this image of Hollywood splendor and everything, but he wasn't a director and he wasn't an actor.
No. Movies were still black and white. So yeah, he appeared in several movies starring as himself, leading an orchestra because he was a music director. So he also took part in several movies as a music director.
So he did the music for the films and he played himself. He was kind of a bit of a celebrity too, moved in those circles. Just looking at it, he was born on the 1st of January 1900. That's a nice date to be born, New century. I'm gonna enter into this world. Time now for our Catalan phrase. What have we got this week, Gerard?
Ser el dolent de la pel·lícula.
To be the baddie in the film?
Yeah, exactly.
Which, I guess it means to be the baddie?
To be the baddie, yeah.
To be the bad guy?
Yeah.
So
you use it not only in movies, but also in real life experiences. Like if someone gives you something that you are not expecting, he's a bad guy.
Yeah, if you get some bad news or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so ser el dolent de la película. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks to J.A. Bayona for speaking to us on the red carpet. Thanks to his former professors as well at ESCAC, Jaume Macià Vives and Joan Marimón Padrosa. Thanks to Cillian Shields and thanks to you, Gerard.
It's always a pleasure, you know that.
And thanks to you, everyone who is listening. Thanks for tuning in again to this podcast. We're back again with another episode of Filling the Sink next weekend. Until then, from me, Lorcan Doherty, and all of us here at Catalan News, bye for now. Adieu.